5 minutes to showtime. 5 minutes. Three minutes to showtime. Two minutes to showtime. 2 minutes.
For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
No more shutdowns. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. President Trump continues to push for states to reopen further, even as health experts fear doing so could cause COVID-19 cases to kick back up.
COVID-19 hospitalizations are going, but officials stress that does not mean that people can let their guard down, and health professionals remain concerned. The president himself tweeting in, though, this morning about the progress in battling the pandemic. He wrote, cases, numbers, and deaths are going down all over the country. The president also said he doesn't think it's likely, even if a second wave of the virus were to come later on this year, that he would shut down the U.S. economy again. This, as his own economic team is warning that the skyrocketing unemployment rate that the country is seeing right now is not likely to disappear before Election Day.
Fox's Mark Meredith. Americans divided on whether more restrictions should be lowered or not. That division no more apparent than in places like California.
Different counties here in California are in different stages of the governor's four-phase plan to ease restrictions, but it didn't stop more than 2,000 people from protesting yesterday at California's Capitol, one of at least 12 reopened protests that happened across the country. Many Americans are divided on reopening efforts. According to a recent Quinnipiac University poll, 75% of those surveyed would rather reopen the country slowly, even if it means the economy will get worse, than rush to reopen quickly.
Fox's Christina Coleman. President Trump today suspended travel of non-U.S. citizens from Brazil, the Latin American country hit hardest by coronavirus. It also has the third highest number of cases in the world. The White House says the action will help ensure that foreign nationals who have been in Brazil don't become a source of additional infections in the U.S. Brazil joins a list of several other countries where travel is prohibited to the U.S. America is listening to Fox News.
The last few months have taught us what's important in life. It's also taught us what
This is the
to
Truth
eliminate.
Frequency Radio Network.
TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. We're coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains through the America Free Radio studios on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, and we're also on YouTube Live. This is the voice of the revolution. Let me at first give you my Religion of Peace report. In the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace conducted 52 attacks. In these 52 attacks, the Religion of Peace killed 187 innocent people, injured 245 innocent people, conducted 3 suicide blasts, and spread their mayhem across 15 countries. Final score on the Ramadan Bamathon. The Religion of Peace conducted 175 attacks during Ramadan that killed 718 innocent people. All other religions combined, 0 attacks, 0 innocent people killed. Oh, and all attacks conducted by right-wing or anti-Muslim extremists, 0. With 0 people killed. All of this from the religion of peace, just to bring you up to date. All right, we have a great program for you tonight. Tonight at the 9 o'clock hour, we have James Rink coming on the program. James Rink is a friend, an associate. We have spoken together on several venues around the country over the last couple of years, and he's coming on the program tonight. We're going to catch up on things like COVID-19 and the secret space program and even activities of the cabal then, now, and possibly in the future. So don't miss that. Make sure to tell your friends and fans of James Rink to tune in at the 9 o'clock hour. In the meantime, let's get started. We have a lot of news to cover. Lockdown lawbreakers. Oh, yeah. Just hours after Tulare County supervisors voted to open up for business despite Governor Gavin Newsom, they call him Adolf Newsom in California now, his lockdown orders, officials received a letter threatening to withhold some of the $47 million in federal CARES Act relief funds it had been awarded as a county. I quote, "It is my understanding Tulare County has taken steps that are inconsistent with the governor's executive orders and the state public health officer's directives. These problematic and concerning actions jeopardize public health and safety, not only within the county, but beyond, through community contact and spread," the letter said. Oh, it went on. Let's see here. If Tulare County believes there is no emergency such that it can ignore the governor's executive orders or the state public health officer's directives, the county would not be able to demonstrate that it was extraordinarily and disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, and this, of course, would impact the amount of money they get in disaster aid. The San Francisco Chronicle reported on how local officials were responding to the suffering of local businesses when they voted to reopen. I quote, "It has become an issue of needing to get people back on their feet and back to work," said Supervisor Dennis Townsend, who authored the county's measure that permits virtually all businesses to reopen and halts local enforcement of the California stay-at-home directive. I go on, it says, "By trying to protect people, we are taking away the livelihood of people." So the Visalia Times reported on the rift between the state and local governments. Supervisors voted 3-2 to reopen the county. Allows nearly all businesses to reopen that fall under Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the state's plan. That includes dine-in restaurants, churches, barbers, gyms, movie theaters, oh no, and shopping malls. Surely a den of infection there. As for the disaster funding, Townsend said that the county has spent about $1.4 million on the COVID-19 response so far. By comparison, the CAO estimates the county will lose between $18 to $25 million in tax revenues with the economy shut down. It's a no-brainer for them. On Monday, Newsom singled out Tulare and neighboring Kings counties as 2 of the 5 that will remain closed under newly relaxed criteria for restarting California's economy. He pointed to severe outbreaks at nursing homes, meatpacking plants as obstacles the bi-county region would need to overcome before its economy could progress. Really? So, Gavin Newsom's order to send infected adults into senior care facilities, thus infecting those facilities and causing death, that's why he's keeping those counties closed. That makes a lot of sense to me. The Times at Delta reported that the chairman, Pete Vander Poel, said holding Tulare County hostage because of nursing homes and the corporate bad actors who operate them for a profit is unfair because it is, after all, the state that regulates those facilities. But some businesses are nervous since state officials have bullied them. California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, also known as ABC, you probably have one close to you, closed a Corcoran bar over the weekend following a similar reopening resolution passed by Kings County. Another establishment, Downtown Rookies, it also closed. It said it would reopen with a dine-in service at 50% capacity, but it reversed its decision. The bar wrote on its Facebook page, "However, after speaking with ABC this morning, we must follow Governor Newsom's restrictions. And ABC will not permit any sit-down dining for restaurants that have a liquor license. So unfortunately, we are back to takeout only until this governor of ours decides to release us for business as usual." California Board of Barbering and Cosmetology also spoke out against business opening. I quote, "If businesses continue to put public health and safety at risk by not following the guidance provided, and if circumstances warrant it, the board may pursue disciplinary action against their license. This will not be taken lightly." But others who live in this rural part of California agree with the plan to reopen the local economy. Sounds like the revolution is rising, does it not? Barbers with comb and clippers in hand marching in the streets. I never thought I would. "I'm happy with the board's decision. It's a step in the right direction," Keith Korsgarden said, who probably opened up his Visalia Crawdaddy's dining room on Wednesday. "A lot of people would like a big part of their social life back, and gathering for lunch and dinner with each other is part of that. I'm happy Crawdaddy is open. It's time to open the economy." Chronicle reported that county leaders have no intention of changing course. "We will not be doing any type of enforcement," Supervisor Julia Crocker said. That means that it doesn't sound like the county sheriff is going to show up and be drawing down on the people at Supercuts. So that's a good thing. But what does that mean? Does that mean that Adolph Newsom is going to have to send his troops in to Tulare County? Oh no, you will not shampoo without permission. No. We're going to draw down on you guys. Definitely got to send a SWAT team in to stop crawdaddies from serving that calabash. I mean, you might even have Stacey Abrams show up. "You've been here 4 hours. You go now." I'm just kidding. I wouldn't make fun of fat people. Would I? Killer weather. Researchers at Australian National University have called for, I know you're not going to believe this. It's true, though. It's true. I'm just telling you. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't make this stuff up. Calling for climate change to be recorded as the cause of death. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. They got to put climate change on the death certificates. They claim that in Australia, the rate of people dying as a result of global warming may be 50 times higher than is officially acknowledged. Really, climate change is listed officially as the cause of death 50 times higher. Wow. Oh my gosh. Choking on a ham sandwich is more deadly than climate change. I'm just telling you. In a letter to the Lancet Planetary Health, researchers Arna Greta Hunter and Simon Quilty, I'm not kidding, these are real names. Real, it's got to be. Like every arch enemy to logic has a name like Quilty. Anyway, they claim that the impact of climate change is currently understated. Yes. See, it used to be global warming, but see, like, we stopped warming. It started getting, I don't know, colder, like an ice age is coming. So they said, well, we can't say global warming anymore, so we'll say climate change. That's right. Yeah, that's the ticket. National mortality records in Australia suggest substantial underreporting of heat-related mortality. Less than 0.1% of 1.7 million deaths between 2011 and 2017 were attributed directly or indirectly to overheating. I mean, excessive natural heat. Yes, that's what we call it. Yes, this person died of excessive natural heat after a bullet went through their heart. I've just added that part, italics, for emphasis. However, recent research indicates that official records underestimate the association at least 50-fold. So what's 50 times 0.1%? Oh, yeah. 5%. Really? According to the Sydney Morning Herald, let's see here. Oh, over the past 11 years in Australia, just 340 deaths have been recorded as being caused by excessive heat. But statistical analysis by two doctors with the Australian National University show that 36,765 could have been attributed to heat. Climate change is a killer, but we don't acknowledge it on death certificates. Wow. Mobilize the army. Let's get that sun. Come on, man. Climate change is the single greatest health threat we face globally, even after we recover from coronavirus. Oh, now I see the connection. Because, very soon we're all going to be cured, right? Because that's what the human body does. You assault us with microbes and viruses, and our immune system goes to work, and there you go. Antibodies. Can't bother me with COVID anymore. Oh, but we can replace it. Now we have this mechanism. We have this blank on the death certificate. We can put in new causes of death, more letters. COVID-19 is more than like heart attack or more than natural causes. Yes. No, now it's climate change. And you know what's going to happen. The statistics, that's right. They're going to gather the numbers over a few years and say, oh my gosh, look at this. 36,000 people died of climate change in Australia. We've got to do something. Mobilize the Air Force right away. Climate activists around the world. How would you do that actually? Can I see in the chat room who would become a climate activist? And who would you protest? I mean, you can't mess with Mother Nature. You can't go protest the sun. I get it. All right. So you would only protest at night. Yes? Wow. I'm just thinking. How would you make money on that? What mask could you buy to protect yourself against the sun? Maybe air conditioning. Oh, no, we can't do that because that requires electricity and that requires natural gas, which is, I get it. Everybody inside right now, turn your lights off. No TV, no Netflix for you. In the UK, for example, as Ronan Mayer has reported several places, the Coronavirus Act of 2020 includes clauses which makes it possible for doctors to put COVID-19 as a cause of death on certificates without even having seen the patient before death and with little independent oversight. This makes it quite possible that significant numbers, I would say that's with a capital S, or should I say a capital BS, significant numbers of coronavirus victims either never had the disease or did have the disease, but only as a minor adjunct to much more serious conditions like pancreatic cancer Or like my son's rider in his motorcycle club, one of the fathers of those boys was T-boned on his motorcycle and killed as a result of the accident. When the death certificate came from the state of North Carolina, it said cause of death, COVID-19. Now you would think, oh, well, gee, that's no big deal. That's just another coroner trying to be like, a little tick mark so he can get a little more funding or whatever. But there's a problem. You see, it was a wrongful death. The car T-boned a guy on a motorcycle and killed him. And so the family of the man riding the motorcycle is suing the car who ran the stop sign and killed him. Except it ain't the accident that killed him. It's COVID-19. So the family cannot sue. There's no redress for the family. They have to sue the, people that made the flu. They got to get behind everyone else and sue China. Wow. Anyway, as authors of the letter to Lancet Planetary Health must surely be aware, including climate change as a cause of death on certificates is fraught with similar difficulties, as well as being easily abused by activists with an agenda. Surely not. Nobody would ever be dishonest about putting a cause of death on a death certificate. Death by Martians. It is impossible to attribute with any certainty, even extreme weather events, to climate change. Died in a tornado. Nope, that was climate change. Died in a forest fire. Nope. Climate change. Died in a hurricane. No. Climate change. All that's going to be changed. At 9 o'clock, we have James Rink coming on. Super Soldier, Time Traveler, Mars Jumper. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. He's a good guy. He's got a lot of energy. He's a good kid. I can promise you that. Oh, you noticed that? Well, I'll just give you a little closer look here, because this is my official Trump drinking straw. Yep, there it is. And you could have one too. You have to go to Trump Tower to get it. Get it with your iced tea. Real quick, Obama's Iranian team. You didn't know he had an Iranian team, did you? Well, he does. He has a team in Iran, and they're hacking the 2020 election. Oh, yes, we have the scoop on this, and we're going to share it with you. As you know, Obamagate, did I say that? I meant to say, oh, butt wipe. No, you know what I'm talking about. He illegally paid the Iran's radical Islamic regime billions in cash. We know that. They were caught after the fact. He didn't admit it for 6 months, but yeah, maybe somebody might have flown a plane load with $1.8 billion in cash to the mullahs in Iran, and it might have been me. But I'm not really admitting anything. It was illegal. Now, it seems payback is coming. The hackers who are funded by the terror-sponsoring regime in Iran are actively targeting the 2020 election in the United States to undermine President Trump, whose re-election would be their nightmare, according to a new report. Senior U.S. intelligence officials have revealed that Trump's re-election is a nightmare for the Ayatollahs. Am I smiling? Yes, I am. So Iran is paying hackers to attack using some of the cash provided by former President Buttwipe. Iran seeks to undermine U.S. democratic institutions, the current U.S. president, and to divide the country in advance of the 2020 elections. That official, speaking to reporters on condition of anonymity, said the cyber warriors are trying to exploit the coronavirus pandemic. Iran is targeting U.S. and international health organizations for the COVID-19 information, and it aims to release select information that would inflame discord, an official reported. The report explained during the 2012 election, Iran was suspected of attacking several American banks. You remember this in the news. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citigroup. Anyway, they attacked them with what's called denial of services strategies. It was what we call testing the fences, testing the perimeter, just to see if they could do it. Now, more recently, these very skillful high-level cyber attacks, apparently from Iran, on U.S. utilities have occurred. It is fairly well known that the Iranian government has invested considerable resources into cyber hacking, and they have done this for a long time. That's Fred Fleitz, whose background includes being, Chief of Staff to National Security Advisor John Bolton. Iran is a major American adversary. I'm sure it wants to steal technology, learn about American weakness, meddle in our democracy, and steal economic secrets. I have no doubt the Iranians have an aggressive effort. Former advisor John Bolton said. Now, a cybersecurity expert, this guy's name is Ramesh Separad. Yes, Ramesh says that Iran has experienced its own uprisings, demanding regime change and public anger over its mismanagement, and Iran's mullahs hope a disruption in the American leadership is going to benefit them. She's on an advisory board for the Organization of Iranian American Communities, which opposes the current regime in Iran. You know that before the COVID-19, they had protests off and on in 600 cities, but consistently in 60 cities. Yeah, that's a lot for Iran. And, we praised a lot of those women here on the station for taking their hijab off and burning it in the streets and actually dancing. Dancing, that's against the law, in Iran, is to dance. Women are not allowed to dance. But we saw their videos and we retweeted them as much as we could. By the way, you should follow me on social media, because if you do, it will treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. As part of the global effort to overthrow the American government, Democrats in Philadelphia pleaded guilty Thursday to accepting $2,500 in bribes to inflate the vote totals for 3 Democrat candidates. Dominic DeMuro pleaded guilty to conspiracy to deprive Philadelphia voters of their civil rights by fraudulently stuffing the ballot boxes for the candidates for Common Pleas Court in the 2014, 2015, and 2016 primary elections. Announcing the guilty plea Thursday, U.S. Attorney William McSwain said DeMuro also is accused of violating the Travel Act, which bars the use of a cell phone to promote illegal activities such as bribery. That's how they catch these guys. Little technicalities they overlook, kind of like mail fraud or income tax evasion. Our election system relies on the honesty and the integrity of its election officials. If they are corrupt, the system is corrupt, which creates opportunities for election fraud and for the counting of fake votes. U.S. Attorney said DeMuro fraudulently stuffed the ballot box by literally standing in the voting booth and voting over and over and over again as fast as he could. Yeah. And this is utterly reprehensible conduct. Charges announced today do not erase what he did, but they do ensure that he is held to account for those actions. Where does the $2,500 come in? Let's take a quick break. We'll come back right after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio right after this.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Gio, founder of Truth Frequency Radio and host of Beyond the Veil. The mainstream media and establishment are running scared right now, and they've prominently featured truthfrequencyradio.com as number 89 on the federal government's hit list, also known as the fake news list, which is essentially a list of sites slated for censorship on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media. Now is the time for you to get involved. Share your favorite TFR shows far and wide on forums and social media. Tell your friends and family about your favorite shows. If you're a business owner, get in touch with us to feature your product or service right here on TFR. And if you haven't done so already, become a TFR supporter now and get unlimited commercial-free downloads in high quality. Visit truthfrequencyradio.com/sign-up. Thank you for making TFR the leader in independent and uncensored talk radio. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
True initiation is an inward journey. It's a spiritual path that is totally inward. It has nothing to do with anything external to you.
I want to determine if the Grand Architect is indeed what I believe it to be, which is the artificial intelligence.
The initiatory path is one of self-discovery and self-revealing. It's not a journey that someone can hold your hand through.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you through the steps of initiation. Remember, you are divinity.
Step Beyond the Veil with Chris and Sherry Geo. Fridays and Saturdays, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. You are now tuned into the Truth Frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
I was just checking on the Coca-Cola 600. I don't live far from it, and I had my window open, kind of listening for it, and I don't hear the rumble. So maybe it's over. I don't know. I need to check the news. I'll check during the break, or have the producer check and see who won. I can't hear it, and I would just be heartbroken if they canceled the 600. I heard cars earlier. You could hear the cars going around the track. It just sounds like a constant rumble a couple miles away. Yeah, we like car racing. It's very cool. Very cool car racing. This story I call The Mask. Former federal prosecutor Andrew McCarthy, he says the real question regarding the unmasking of Michael Flynn is whether or not he ever was masked in the first place, because they unmasked him so many times that he might as well have just not been masked at all. He suggests in a National Review column that Flynn could have been identified either by the CIA or a foreign intelligence agency providing information to the Defense Intelligence Agency, which, as you know, James Clapp, the Clapper, was heading at the time. And this is not just about unmasking. It's about how pervasively the butt-wipe administration was monitoring the Trump campaign. McCarthy explains that there is no record showing who unmasked Flynn in connection with the December 29, 2016 conversation with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, who's dead. They killed him. I quote, "I suspect that because General Flynn's identity was not masked in the first place, instead his December 29th call with Kislyak was likely intercepted under an intelligence program not subject to the masking rules, probably by the CIA or a friendly foreign spy service acting in a nod and wink arrangement with our intelligence community." We typically call that the Five Eyes, like Five Eyes, not like, a barbershop choir, but because we all speak English and we supposedly share a common goal, we share technical and intelligence information back and forth so we can have eyes everywhere all around the world, sharing satellites, sharing naval ships, sharing bugs and wiretaps and all that stuff. He notes that unmasking is the revealing and classified reports of the names of Americans who have been incidentally monitored. But as we know now that Kislyak, everything he says, everything he does, everything he ate the 25 years he was in Washington, D.C. was monitored. So it wasn't to monitor Kislyak at all. It was to monitor Flynn. They wanted to know what Flynn was telling Trump. McCarthy explains that for 3 years, it's been assumed that Flynn's conversation with Kislyak was intercepted because the Russian ambassador was routinely monitored. The story has been that Flynn was in a conversation with Kislyak and later was unmasked, but that is no longer true. We know that to be a lie. He points out that Acting Director of National Intelligence Richard Grenell, which, by the way, this weekend resigned. Oh, not as acting DNI. Nope. He resigned as ambassador to Germany. He is not going to be returning to Berlin. It will be effective in the next couple of months. But I believe that Richard Grenell has found a home in the DNI. Now, they are going to put a real person in there who is, his name escapes me right at the moment, but I'll get it. He's well known to you, and he's a senator. They're going to make him the actual DNI. But Grenell's done a really very good job in that position. Anyway, he said that the butt-wipe officials in the list he provided last week to Senators Charles Grassley. I know. Look at that. Live NASCAR in-car camera presented by Goodyear Keith Harwick in the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte. So everything is there. The lights, the camera, the action, the cars, but no beer and no fans. I mean, we can enjoy it. We can enjoy it. Look at there. All those empty fans going around the track at 200 miles an hour. And nobody to cheer. Wow. I don't know. Is it the same? I mean, it's not like you can hear the cheers in your helmet. All you can hear is the hammer down round turn 2. Well, watch the car coming up behind you on the left. There you go. Yeah, hold it down. That's all you're going to hear over your headset. You're not going to hear the fans. But it's just not the same, It's not the same to have all those fans with the number 3 shaved in the hair on their back cheering you on. Just missing. It's just heartbreaking. Anyway, McCarthy says there doesn't appear to be a single listed unmasking pertaining to the Kislyak call. There was no request for unmasking on December 29, 2016, nor for the following week. But then they had that meeting. That meeting on January 5th in the White House. Yes, Barack Hussein, butt-wipe, pulled everybody in and said, this is what we're going to do, all hands on deck. That inauguration is in a few weeks, and we're going to make sure we take this guy down before he ever says, I do solemnly swear. This highlights how central that day is to the anatomy of the Democrat-crafted collusion narrative. It was on the morning of January 5th when Buttwipe, Vice President Biden, and National Security Advisor Susan Rice discussed Flynn and the Trump-Russia investigation with FBI Director James Comey and Acting Attorney General Sally Yates. I'm surprised Nancy Pelosi wasn't there. She's everywhere, that Buttwipe is. Have you seen her lately? Have you seen, like, all the lube still left on her face from where she had her head so far up his... Yeah. I know. It's disgusting, isn't it? Buttwipe and his top officials already knew it was Flynn who was in the conversation with the Russian ambassador. They targeted him specifically because they wanted to know what Trump was doing and how to block him, leak his plans to operatives, and to leak to the press as much as they could to make Trump lose confidence in his own people. And he did. Remember when Admiral Rogers went over to Trump Tower and said, dude, they're wiretapping you. Go someplace else. We're hearing everything you guys say in here. Not that they were saying anything bad, because if they were saying something bad, believe me, it would have been in the New York Times. The intelligence community eventually ruled that Flynn was not a security risk. The fact is that the meeting with Kislyak was authorized and it was harmless. What did you talk about in that meeting? We talked about nothing. We talked about the caviar. It was okay, and I was welcoming him to his new position. I'm sure Flynn is an intelligent, smart guy, deeply embedded in the Buttwipe administration, now in the Trump administration. Sure, he was going to watch certain players on the other side of the aisle. He knew where all the bodies were buried. Kislyak was just a Russian. He was just an old Russian, an old fixture in Washington for a long, long time. A diplomat, a strategist, very well connected in the UN, very well connected and watching out for Russia first. But I don't think he was harmful. I think he was a little embarrassing for Samantha Power. She liked her Russian boys and red wine. Let me put it that way. You did see the picture I posted back when it happened of her in heels and a negligee on a cover of a magazine. And the caption was, "Wait till they get a load of me." Yeah, well, the tall redhead who purchased her seat in the ranks of ambassador to the UN made her mark, and Ambassador Kislyak put her in her place quite a few times. I think there was once in particular where she showed up in the same clothes she was wearing at a party the night before at a meeting. Kislyak pointed it out. She was a little angry about it, ran out, talked at a bunch of microphones blaming Kislyak for something, and he laughed about it. So funny, this tall redhead having fun with my Russian boys. In fact, Flynn was in the Dominican Republic on the day of the phone call. He says Kislyak might have been in Russia. McCarthy concludes that there were several strands of the Trump-Russia probe, and they date to as early as when Trump entered the race for the presidential nomination. You remember that, don't you, down the escalator? I rode that escalator. Every time I go to Trump Tower, I just ride it to the top and ride it down. And the last time I videotaped myself and put it out on Facebook, I think some of you shared it. Thank you very much. It's a fun place. If you ever get to New York, you should go there. It's where I got my Trump straw. It's where I got my Space Force hat. Trump didn't know he was being spied on from the inside of his own organization. He was a big innocent kid. He was being recorded on virtually all of his phone calls. Still, they didn't find any wrongdoing. Nothing. The only thing they could come up with was an old recording in a motorhome that he had with some other guy, locker room talk. You remember that, don't you? We don't pay any attention to such stupid things. Everything they threw at him slid right off. Don't forget, at 9 o'clock, we have James Rink coming on, super soldier, time traveler, Mars jumper. You're going to find a lot of cool stuff. He's got a lot of energy. He's a good kid, and I like him. We've spoken together in a couple of venues around the country. Hard to say. I don't know. We'll hear his words. I'll ask the right questions. He'll give the right answers. And as always, I leave it up to you, the listeners, to evaluate everything. But I am not critical. I am an open mind, and I'm just looking for the truth as anyone might know it. And you can't discount a fact. A fact is a direct observation. School days. Oh, I like this story. While advocates of big government may be rejoicing at the power flexed by Democrat governors, 24 want to stay open. It's them against the president, them against America, them. They have joined the Global Syndicate, just as they did in 1860, to crush America and divide us up. In particular, during the coronavirus crisis, we don't call it coronavirus pandemic around here. You hear that on every other station, all hours, all channels. We don't call it that here. One an unanticipated consequence, it all could be, millions of families are now choosing homeschooling over the public option this coming fall. They're in for a big surprise. Big surprise. You know, schools are given a check by the county. Each county runs a school system. Some school systems are run by the cities, but not very often. Usually it's a county function. They get paid by the number of kids that are in seats each day. Yeah, absenteeism is a big deal for them. So, you know, when a kid lays out or a kid is truant, it costs them money. And it adds up. It's something like, I don't know, some schools, it's like $12,000 a year. Some crazy amount of money. It adds up. A lot of kids, a big school. But the poll of 2,122 registered voters pulled up something no one really expected. Registered voters were polled by a company called Real Clear Opinion Research last month. Right? It's right during the heart of the shutdown. Everything was locked down. Everything was locked down. You know, I had to cut my own fingernails, my own toenails. It's just, you know how long it's been since I cut my own toenails? It's been years. Years. I don't do that anymore. It's much better, a much better job if somebody uses two hands, you know, and the hot water and the massage and the chair, and you know what I'm talking about. It's awesome. It's a great industry. What do you mean you haven't had one? You should go have one. Well, wear a mask if you're afraid of being identified. But I promise you, once you have one, you're never going to cut your own toenails again. Okay, the point is that Real Clear Opinion Research last month found that 40.8% of families are more likely to pursue homeschooling or virtual schooling after the restrictions are lifted. Oh, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. 40% of the school's budget, it's going to be flushed right down the toilet. All those lotteries that you buy, you know what the lottery is, don't you? Little scratch off things. I call it a tax on the poor and the stupid, but hey, these are people that would never pay tax anyway. So now they pay. They pay because they play the lottery. But you got to keep all your revenue channels open. I'm just saying, all that money, millions of dollars a year, goes to the school system because of all those people scratching those little cards off, you know, down at the Minute Mart at 6 o'clock in the morning when you're getting fuel to go to work. They're scratching things off thinking, maybe I don't have to go to work today. Maybe I'll scratch off and win $1 million. All that money goes to the school system. But if there's nobody in the seat, the school doesn't get the money. You think the money's going to go to the homeschool kids? I don't think so. I don't think mom and dad are going to get a check like the school does. Of course, those parents surveyed, the breakdown was 45.7% Democrats and 42.3% Republicans. So what do you think about them apples? So there was no conservative slant in the sample set. Among the respondents, minorities were more strongly favored the homeschooling. For white people, 36.3% more likely to choose homeschooling in the fall compared to 50.4% of African Americans, 38.3% of Hispanics, 53.8% of Asians. Wow. Every single family with kids in school has been incredibly disrupted by these lockdowns. I was talking to a guy. In fact, I had a hankering for some chicken wings yesterday. So I went by Wing Eaters. That's just one of the chicken wing places we have in town. And I bought some chicken wings. And the guy was really cool. He has an 18-year-old daughter who just graduated high school. And he went to the graduation ceremony. That's with a little C. A little C. Because he had to stand at one end of the gym while she came in one door, flashed her picture, picked up her diploma, walked around the outside of the gym, and out the back door where her dad was. That was it. There was no hat throwing. There was no big name reading. There was no like, yay! There was none of that. It was so weird, he said. It was just weird. How can you watch your kid graduate? These kids have really been disrupted. The parents have really been disrupted. 55 million students no longer in their normal educational settings. 55 million. Families are clearly considering new options, and many are seeing the benefits of homeschooling and virtual schooling. Here's a prediction I will make right here on America Free Radio tonight. As the voice of the revolution, here it is. You're going to see a standoff between mom and dad wanting to homeschool their kid at home and the union schools going to court to stop it. Because the union schools are full of union teachers. And for every single union teacher, you have a union administrator. And they're all making money off the system, unless your kid is not in class. But we're concerned that your child's not going to get a structured education. Yeah, you know what? That's kind of the whole idea. Multiple homeschool advocates are out there in force. They're saying that the forced shutdown of nearly the entire U.S. public school system has created a unique opportunity for parents to weigh the benefits of joining the current millions of American students already doing their learning at home. I have been saying for a long, long time that institutional schools, universities, high schools, maybe middle schools, they're losing their franchise on education. What does that mean? Well, look at it this way. When you're a union teacher, you don't have to do much. I mean, you could show up to the school and fog a mirror as long as you don't drink alcohol on the job. And you can hand out the same syllabus you have been handing out for the last 10 years. And you could teach the same lesson with a slight alterations in the test so people don't, like the answer to number 1 is C. The answer to number 4 is D. Mix the questions up so people actually have to actually read the questions before they answer the multiple choice test. And a certain number of kids need to actually pass so the school gets their money and they can pass the state test, showing that they know what the state wants them to know. But then those students get out of school and employers hire them, and we ask them to do things like add up these 6 numbers. Huh? Read these instructions so you know how to run this machine. What? You know that work starts every day here at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? You can't show up at 8:10 and then stay till 5:10 to make it up. That's not the way our business works. What? What are you talking about? Yeah, the kids are stupid. I hire engineers right out of college. They come in, I sit them down with a programmable logic controller. That's what we call them these days, a PLC. hand them a controller and say, here, write a simple program for me to control this conveyor belt. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. They don't teach that in school. So I have to do it. Well, if I have to do it, then I'm going to do it while they're in school. When I was in school, we had co-ops. When you were in high school, you got to go do a co-op. You could go do a co-op at JPL. You could do one at the airplane factory at Boeing or in Lockheed Martin. And you got exposed to high technology. And you got experience that would help you after you get out of high school to get a job or to at least know what career you want to go into. We also had, I know it's spelled shop. It's spelled S-H-O-P, shop. And in this area of the high school, you got to work on cars, you got to weld, you got to build stuff and finish wood, wire circuits, and learned all about AC and DC theory. Yeah, they don't have that anymore either. Shop. Yeah, it's different than social studies. It's different than, whatever they're teaching in school now. And you actually gain some skills with it. So the number one hardest decision to make has been made for 55 million children. And that's always the barrier that's the hardest for us to break. But now these kids, they're home. And they're learning much faster. They're learning much more current information. And they're learning it as quickly as they can assimilate it. What's going to happen in a very short amount of time? And by the way, there are tons of resources online. Google has upgraded their whole Learn at Home series. But the homeschoolers, even if parents are bright enough to teach them chemistry or mathematics or something like that, there are parents who are smart enough to do it. They have degrees, advanced degrees in this area. And sometimes the parents will share resources. And sometimes homeschooling groups, one of my friends runs a tire store not far from here, and both he and his wife homeschool. They've been doing it for years, and told me about a network of experts that they have that they share among the parents. When it comes time to learn, Spanish, or it comes time to learn electronics theory, or auto mechanics, or machine or metallurgy, there are experts around to help those kids. And they're learning at an accelerated rate, and they're doing very, very well on the standardized exams. So I think they're going to have a big surprise if this fall students don't go back to the government union schools. As more families navigate school at home, we're going to see more and more turn to homeschooling as a better option, as it affords a much more individualized approach. No fashion show. Your kid, you don't have to worry about your daughters getting pregnant, or pictures going out on social media, or boyfriends or girlfriends, or boyfriends and boyfriends. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. All that stuff goes away. We anticipate that many will make the decision to continue in the fall as they see the benefits of tailoring curriculum to their students' specific strengths and needs. The public school system has been a means the left has used for many decades to indoctrinate children into statist, politically correct ideology, and all that's going to go away. Maybe one of the best silver linings coming out of this whole pandemic will be millions of kids freed from the left's manipulation, and now be able to develop a wholesome, God-fearing talent and some patriotism. We'll take a quick break. We'll come right back with James Rink, Super Soldier. Don't go away. More coming up right after this with America Free Radio.
Hello.
Hey, James, how you doing?
Good.
All right, we got the studio's on doing its thing with the radio. We're live on YouTube, so we'll try to get this feed going, this NDI feed, so we can put you on the screen. And have you got your video running?
Need to get it running any moment now.
Okay. We'll try it. This is the way it's done, ladies and gentlemen. You're seeing the inner workings of live radio. There we go. I see it. All right, NDI. Let's add NDI source. This is the way it's done in... All right. Now let's see if we can find... we can do this.
Or not. Hold on, give me a moment. Let me see if I can get that NESARA sign that I have. Got it up here somewhere. I was busy writing up a cheat sheet. I've got some notes here. I don't know where it is. It's got to be another one, but...
Oh, we got about 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Can you see me okay?
Well, I think I can. Let me get your, I'm going to put your video behind the mask here. We'll see if it'll work.
Okay.
It takes a little bit for the NDI to encode. Make sure we don't have an echo going on.
You hear an echo?
I don't think so. I think we're good on the...
Okay.
I know. I have my mic's live. We're talking. We're live on YouTube. It's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's under control. It's just that I let the YouTube people in on this. They don't mind. This is the inner working. Let's see. That is not working yet. We'll transition this. This is James Rink. I got your picture up there. We'll keep this going until Skype behaves itself with the NDI. So far, not working.
So my video feed's not live yet?
No, but we're getting there.
Do you have my bio?
No.
Okay, well I'll send it to you and then you can read it. Or if you want me to read it, I can read it, but I'll send you this one here.
Oh.
This just give you my websites too.
NDI. So okay, we're now live. We're back on the studio. So let me bring the studio back in. Okay, we're live again. We're just trying to figure out the NDI feed here. And greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome back to America Free Radio. My guest tonight is James Rink. He is a super soldier, time traveler, fellow speaker out on the speaking tour. And we enjoy having all this going around the country. I'm trying to open up my chat here because I think he sent me some information so I can see it. Oh, moment. We do everything live around here, so it's all live radio. All right. Welcome to the program, James. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, so I sent you my bio, but essentially a little bit of background information about me. I am a super soldier. I've been involved in the secret space program. I've done way more than just 20 year and back. If I start talking about the numbers, you might blow most people's minds, but I don't want to talk about that tonight. What I want to talk tonight about is the financial system. Because years ago, I put together a documentary called Changes on the Horizon, which goes a little bit into, well, actually quite a bit extensively on how the financial system is actually structured. Because at that time, I was going to school, getting a degree in finance, and most of the answers that they were giving me, spoon feeding me, did not seem right. There were like huge questions, like for instance, inflation. I mean, from my perspective, inflation was created by the banks and what it basically, it's through the issuing of the currency, and they were not really explaining this in the school. They had all these equations and this and that, but it didn't really make any sense. Well, anyway, so I put together a financial documentary about the eventually what became known as NESARA, and so that video got close to 5 million views, and then YouTube censored it. So I re-released it back in March, updating it since 2010. And so I would like to talk about that now. If you want me to go down the secret space program, we can certainly go down that too. I tried to tie some of that into it as well. But yeah, so.
Well, I like NESARA. First of all, tell us what the letters stand for. What is NESARA, and why? To me, I think what it is like a national jubilee where somehow the financial empire says, you know what, all debts are forgiven. We reset everything to zero and we start over again because it's all too screwed up to fix.
Yeah. Okay. So NESARA stands for the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. And it is actually a law that was passed by Congress, 20 congressional men and women in March of 2000. And they gave them a special quorum call session where they were all escorted to their chambers and voted on NESARA. And then the law was actually signed by Bill Clinton in October of 2000. And it was supposed to be announced to the public on September 11th, 2001 at 10 a.m. At 9 a.m., the banking computers in the World Trade Center, and I'll tell everybody what actually the provisions, but it basically gets rid of the Federal Reserve, IRS, returns back to constitutional law, and there's a lot of money. But I'm going to go into that just a bit. But just to get to the punchline, since I already started on 9/11, so we know what happened. The banking computers were bombed in the World Trade Center, as well as the Office of Naval Investigations in the Pentagon, which was the branch of the White Knights responsible for the changeover to the constitutional government. That was also bombed by a drone aircraft carrying a missile payload that flew over the Pentagon. And that's what that hole was. You remember?
Yeah.
But okay.
I remember everything being wiped out in one day, and it was kind of, well, it was not a coincidence at all that all these activities and storehouses of information were taken down, and the gold vaults. I still wonder myself about building number 7 that kind of fell down out of sympathy for the other 2 buildings. Nothing hit it, and it just a 7-story building collapsed to the ground. I've had Chris Gage I had on the program, who is the head of the American Institute of Architects, and he has 2,500 architectural engineers that are part of that organization. They voted unanimously, after analyzing the metal and some of the other evidences that they collected from the collapsed buildings, that those buildings were actually brought down with controlled explosives, that diesel or fuel or kerosene that actually runs jets had nothing to do with it. In fact, there was no residue of jet fuel on anything. So everything that we watched live in 2001 was a joke, and a terrible joke at that, because thousands of Americans died somehow in this. The people that were on those airplanes died, even though airplanes did not hit those buildings, which means somebody did them in. And the fact that they crashed into these specific areas, destroying that specific information, within days of specifically it being outed to the public that, hey, we've been ripping you off trillions of dollars every single year, It's a big wake-up call for everyone.
Yeah, you remember the $3 trillion? Apparently, they said what missing the day before, September 10th. So there was already some disclosure, and it was all about to happen, and they were about to bring this all out. But so it was Dick Cheney, Bush Sr. They went into their command center, I don't know, maybe a day before 9/11 to coordinate these attacks. And I don't even know if his father, Bush Sr., was even telling Junior what was about to happen. It's almost like Junior was, I think he might have been kept out of the loop because he agreed to go along with NESARA, but his father was the one who was trying to block it. Now, once he got in office, that might have been totally out the water because power can do a lot of things to you. So he promised when Bill Clinton was on the way out, he promised that he would go along with NESARA. Obviously, Al Gore didn't, and because we know what happened, the election was so thin in 2000.
Who has organized NESARA and why?
Okay, good question. So initially, I guess we're going to go back to maybe we should go back to the very beginning. And of course, the very beginning, the financing, all that stuff, that even goes further back. But we'll start with the Farmer Claims Program of the 1980s, where the Baskervilles and were working together. There was a group of farmers in the Midwest that had their farms being foreclosed upon through illegal means. And like, for instance, there was they would put a provision in the contract that basically stated, on the event of the borrower's death, the assets will be reverted back to the bank. So they were doing this type of financial shenanigans. And what happened is one of the people, the father, one of the people that died that the bank closed upon, his son was a military general. So next thing you know, military generals are starting to get involved with the case, and that was General Roy Schlesinger, and he's no longer with us, unfortunately. But what happened is, it was of course, they ran out of money. The attorneys basically told them that they can't do anything anymore, that you've lost your property, and so they kept going after the banks, and they found that the banks were not chartered to do business. They were not chartered to do business under the Federal Reserves. And then they even found the Federal Reserve System was not chartered to do business, because the Constitution states only gold and silver can be used for money. And the Federal Reserve notes are meant to be used between central banks. So what they did is they just changed the law. They basically changed the status of U.S. citizens to make us central banks. So they do all these kind of these really tricky things to try to get around the law. But ultimately, what happened is that lawsuit, they won. They won. This was around. Okay, I'm trying to remember. This would have been maybe, I don't know if it was maybe around 1990 or 89, but they actually won the lawsuit all the way up to the Supreme Court level. They had to keep fighting it, and the judges. But the bankers would not pay out. They were supposed to return all the property they had foreclosed upon. And so what happened is that the Pentagon became more and more involved in this case. And they found that the judges were being bribed. The IRS was handing judges suitcases of cash under the table. They would find senators were being bribed, and lawmakers. And certainly at that time, George Bush Sr. was talking about a new world order in all his speeches, almost every speech he had. So, and then they started building concentration camps. Right around 1990, there was these massive, some of them could hold millions of people, like in Alaska. So at that time, the military, so they realized they were about to lose the republic. Oh, well. We actually lost the republic in 1870, but what's left is the corporate republic, the corporate government that's representing the Republic of the United States. So we have like two governments. We have in 1871, it was the Organic Act of create I guess the District of Columbia, the corporation of it thereof, and so that it's almost like the original republic was abandoned and the corporate republic became was put in its place, and as a corporation, the leaders of the corporation can overrule certain laws because they're doing what's in their own best corporate interest. That's why you feel like you have no rights under this United States of America. And they can do anyway.
Well, let me ask you a question. So we know when NESARA started. We know who started it. We know generally why it was started. But then we see that the global banking, let's call it, they're not complying. They're not going to give up the money. They're not going to give it back to the people to whom it rightfully belongs. So we're in a situation where we fought a couple of wars since then, and we've spent a couple $1 trillion to try to assert the central banking muscle around the world. Who is going to force the central bank to turn this money back over to the rightful owners?
Good question. I believe, certainly we have the White Knights in the military, but we also have the dragon families who are descendants of the Ming Dynasty, who have access as receivership of some of the assets and the collateral accounts. And the money that was backing all this up was based on what is in those collateral accounts, which is under St. Germain's Foundation Divine. And World Trust is also under there too. But so we have these royal families who put their money, set aside some of their family's wealth to be put aside to the day when we would reach the age of Aquarius, where the wealth was to basically free us from this bondage of slavery and debt, and to allow us to go into the new age where we have infinite potential of course, the technology and the singularity. But so we got all this enormous money, and it's almost like if you look at gold as well, because a lot of this is based on these ancient treasures. We're talking about King Solomon's gold. We're talking about ancient gold from the age of Marco Polo that came from Europe, was constantly going to Indonesia. But in particular, some of these ancient treasures, it almost like this gold has a certain vibration to it that if you handle it, it raises your vibrational frequency. And so the bankers do not want people to get their hands on this gold because it changes you. So I think they restricted all that so that it would keep the people impoverished and basically in debt to the banks, because the banks are using alchemy by issuing money out of thin air and charging you interest for it. So they're doing a form of I guess you call it the Babylonian mystery magic.
Yeah, they're creating value out of nothing, just little ones and zeros. And you said something interesting though, and we have an example of this in history. You said the money changes you. You would think that when you have untold amount of wealth pour into a community, that community would then become powerful and be empowered to do great things for the world. We have an example of that. When the conquistadors went to Yucatan, they found that gold was so plentiful in that society. They used it for everything. They used it for decoration. They used it on their statues. They used it in their jewelry. It was everywhere. But it wasn't everywhere in Europe. And so the Spaniards took all those artifacts, melted them all down into sticks about this long, and then they bent them into loops and tied them together in what are called chains. They did that so it would be easy to transfer from the shore to the barges. And what they would do is they would feed these gold chains onto these barges until the barges were weighed down. And then they would use sailing ships to tow those barges all the way back to Spain. So much gold, it boggled the mind. And what happened to Spain? Ferdinand's Spain and subsequent years, you'd think Spain would become the economic powerhouse of the world. but they didn't. The gold ruined them. It made them so lazy that they wouldn't even get out of their own shadow. And here we are in 2020, and Spain is still one of the poorest countries in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I was getting to is that gold has a DNA, in my opinion, gold has a DNA. And I think there is some scientific evidence to prove this, but it also has an elemental energy to it. It's almost like, it's almost has its own consciousness. And when you constrict it or restrict it from being released, then what happens is that there's almost like a curse put on you. So I think that right there is starting to untangle as we speak. And some of these ancient treasures, once this frequency is released out into the public, then the vibration of the planet will rise. And that's, of course, the bankers don't want that. Now, going on further about asking your question about who else is at stake, who's stopping us. We can also put blame on the CIA because right after the Bretton Woods Agreement, the CIA was given charge of guarding the collateral accounts. Now, the collateral accounts was set up in 1880 under the guidance of Saint Germain, and this is for some of the ancient treasures as well, some of the royal treasures, and so in 1940, the Bretton Woods came to be, and then CIA was put in charge of that. And what happened is they started stealing money from these collateral accounts, and certainly Bush Sr. was heavily involved in that as well. So that guy is extremely dirty. And of course, he was also involved in Montauk. And anyway, but we could keep saying a bunch of bad stuff about. He certainly deserves it. But Bush Sr. But yeah, so the CIA has been abusing their job, and okay, so we got that issue, and now we have the banks. The banks have been issuing derivatives based on the collateral accounts, and they're trading between. They have these bankroll programs between central banks that earn about 1% to 2% per day. Per trade or between each transaction between each central bank, and these transactions are typically 300 million to $1 billion or more. You could have $100 billion contract, and most people don't have that kind of money, so it's reserved for certain Illuminati bloodline families who have access to this wealth, and that money is supposed to be used for humanitarian purposes. However, it's being spent off-world to build breakaway civilizations on Mars with the interplanetary corporate conglomerate, and also the Trimerative, I think it's called. It's a group of about 7 mobster families that run the secret space program. So they don't even need money. They don't, because they got advanced technology. But there's no point. There's no point of even holding back this money anymore. We don't need this. The bankrolls. This money could be used to help people and bring us into our breakaway civilization. But they don't want to do it because they're greedy and they're selfish and they don't care about humanity.
Well, I think it may go deeper than that. In my book, Charm of Favor, we talk about why the Global Syndicate wants to, quote, control the world. I mean, why in the world would the Global Syndicate care about wiping people's butts and making sure they have 3 meals a day? They don't. They don't care anything about that. They don't want to control the world. It goes much deeper than that, much more powerful than that. It's a supernatural force that needs to, and does this on every single world in which it is engaged, needs to capture all of the souls of mankind. Now, it could do that. It has enough technology, it could wipe us all out if it wants to. But it doesn't get our souls. If we're killed and we're innocent, we bypass their grip. We go straight to glory, or, to another realm of glory. So they don't get our souls. What they do, they want our souls. The only way to do that is to make us choose despair, choose wickedness, choose evil. We do that one of 3 ways. We either learn to hate one another, like we go to war, or we kill one another, or we envy one another, or we're jealous of one another. We enslave ourselves voluntarily. We say, okay, I give up. You feed me every day and tell me what to do, and I will do it. I give up my own will to yours. That's the second way. And the third way is that they enslave you. They enslave you to where you never know who you are. You never know what your potential is. You never learn to read or write. You work in a salt mine, or you work in a coal mine, or you work in a farm, or you work in some kind of manual labor to support their world. Like somebody told me one time, oh, these people, what they want to do is reduce the world's population down to 500 million people. Ridiculous. Because these people, they're never pumping their own gas. They're not going to make their own shoes. They're not going to plant their own crops or prepare their own meals. It takes way, way more than 500 million people to run planet Earth. And that's why they want to enslave us. So those are the three ways. And we see all three of those ways being pushed at us on the news every single day. That lower third that says, what is it? Dangerous coronavirus pandemic. You've seen those three words at the bottom of your screen everywhere. That's all part of it. That's all part of it. So James and I go to dinner the other night at Carrabba's. It's the first night Carrabba's has been open since the shutdown, since the lockdown. Like we talk about it, like it's some, post-nuclear event. But we go there, and of course, the people that run the place, they're all wearing masks. Nobody that went to that restaurant to eat is wearing a mask. Now, here's the interesting thing. If you watch people's eyes, all the people that are not wearing masks, we have like solidarity. Like, hey, dudes, we all know what's going on. This is all fake, right? So we're all celebratory in there, having our lasagna and our Caesar salad. We actually avert our eyes from the people who are wearing the masks because we feel sorry for them, because they've been duped into wearing these masks, thinking that this chain link fence they have draped across their face is going to protect them from a virus. So they've done it. And I asked the person in the line, we were outside, socially antisocial, we were 6 feet apart, and I asked them, what kind of power does a man have to be able to shut down 187 countries? Not cities, not city blocks, countries. Lock down 187 countries. That's power. That's what we're talking about here. You think these people aren't powerful? They are powerful. Am I wrong, James?
I'm in total agreement with that. Mm-hmm. I agree. Certainly, from at least what the timeline was showing was that Trump was about to win the election again. So they had to find a way to destroy the economy. They couldn't get rid of him by impeaching him. So the only thing left was to release the virus. I guess that was their backup.
I'm telling you, it was like impeachment show, season 1, season 2, season 3. We were in season 5, and then they had extended it because Nancy Pelosi wanted to take her sweet time about it while the Wuhan CCP virus was infecting people on both coasts. Once that was accomplished, then they went ahead with the impeachment. Senate threw it out because it was totally ridiculous, but it was too late. We were already infected. And they thought it was going to be way worse than it was. What do you think about that, folks? Why don't we take a break? We've got about 1 minute left. Think about that for a moment. That we have a party in this country that needed millions of people to die so they could get back in the White House. Think about that as we go to a break. My guest is James Rink. We'll be right back after a 3-minute break. Take a drink. Relieve yourself, do whatever you got to do, because this next half hour is going to be amazing. We'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere. Okay, we have very quietly tucked the studio away. And let's see if I can video back up here. I got a blue screen, but it'll switch over in a second. Bring your picture back up so people can see. Did you have the ability to share your screen tonight? Oh, he's muted. I don't know why. We're going to see if we can do that. We'll see if James can.
I can get it. I'll try to find my song.
All right. Yeah, no problem. I can either put it up on your camera. Hang on a second. I've been handed a note. I have to read it. All right. Yes. For those of you that did notice, this is my my Death Star ice. I received, or actually gave it, and then I re-gifted it to myself in the household. An ice mold that I can make Death Star ice cubes, and they'll last during an entire program. You can buy them at the Hallmark store. Go to the Hallmark store and go back to the Star Wars section, and you can find these Death Star ice cube molds. They're awesome. You get a big round Death Star out of ice. So we have about a minute and a half before we bring the Truth Frequency Radio studio back in. We have a lot of people that listen by radio. They don't listen by YouTube Live. They listen by their phones, or they listen on their computers or tablets. And the Truth Frequency Radio Network is one of the largest in the country. It is where the Truth Freaks hang out. And we are never afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. So that's exactly what we're going to do tonight. Let's see. So you are able to share your screen with us?
Yeah. You want me to go ahead and do it now?
Well, let's try it, because I have the ability to share the screen that you're on. And so if you could share your screen, let's see if I can see what that looks like here. I still have your video up. Look at anything except sharing of. All right. Well, we'll do that as soon as we come back. We've got about 17 seconds, and we'll try this. I think I can see what's on your screen, so you can talk about it, and then we'll have the audio for it. So I will go ahead and bring the studio back in, and after the intro music plays, we'll go live. Here we go.
Initiating the Truth Frequency. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
And welcome back to X Squared Radio. We're coming to you live through the America Free Radio Studios somewhere east of the Appalachian Mountains. My guest tonight is James Rink, and we're going to try to do a little screen sharing here. Don't know if it'll work or not. We're getting a blue screen right now, but you know, we can always go back to video. It's no big deal. So, James, we're talking about NESARA. Its origins, who's in charge of it, why they're doing it, and it is, for all intents and purposes, it opposes what the global central bank has been trying to do to the world for the last, well, I'm going to say actively for the last 40 years, but ever since 9/11, they've taken steps to cover their tracks and to reassert their grip on the global economy. And I think what happened was, as President Trump realized that we had this enormous trade deficit with China, he attempted to fix it. He started negotiations, which the left called a trade war. It wasn't a trade war. It was just negotiations. Finally, after a couple of years, almost 3 years, President Trump gets the Chinese government to come to the table, and they negotiate a treaty, a trade agreement, and they sign it. And I think literally within days of signing that agreement, maybe even while the agreement was being signed, the CCP virus was being released among the Chinese people, and Chinese dissidents and workers in Wuhan and the Hubei area, the Hubei province, were being infected. And during the Chinese New Year, they were being exported around the world, to Italy, to Europe, to Seattle, to New York, to LA. They were going into health services. They were going into programming. They were going into food services. And literally within a few weeks, they had the entire world infected with this virus, which I think they intended to be much more virulent than it actually turned out to be. People were able to build antibodies against it pretty easily without really developing any serious symptoms. And those people that did develop symptoms for some miraculous reason could be treated with almost an over-the-counter drug, which would relieve them of any symptoms within 4 or 5 days. Within a couple of weeks, they were as good as new. It could even be used as a prophylactic to protect them from being from showing symptoms from the infection while they were building antibodies. Yes, it was particularly infectious, and it was infectious for a long time, maybe a couple of weeks while someone's exposed to it, but it wasn't as virulent as it turned out, as they wanted it to be. And as it turns out, only a few thousand people died. Don't pay any attention to the death certificate numbers. None of that means anything, and I doubt it will ever be revealed to the public. But seriously, what we're dealing with here is a hoax, a giant hoax. And please note that I do have the call-in numbers posted on YouTube, and they're always posted on tfrlive.com, tfrlive.com. You can call in at 213-233-3998 for your questions for James in this half hour, and we totally welcome your questions. I'll check the call board on a regular basis during this segment. So I don't think the screen sharing is working, James. I'm still getting a blue screen, so I'm just using your excellent photograph up here on the screen. That's what everyone's seeing right now. So you can go back to your video, and then I'll switch back to your video. But let's talk about NESARA, because I hear a lot of people saying that, oh, NESARA, it's never going to happen. And I asked you the question in the last segment, who's behind it? Because we know the banks, they have the weapons. They got the planes, they got the ships, they got the Pentagon, they got a totally rebuilt military ready to back them up. Who's backing up NESARA, and how are they going to make it happen? How is this global jubilee going to happen, where all this incredible debt that's been built up with these derivatives, and by the way, I'll let you know what a derivative is. If you own a home, you take out a mortgage. You make the first few payments on your mortgage becomes a security, a tradable security. So let's say your house sells for $200,000. They pool it with 250 other homes to create a $50 million block, which is a tradable security. It's all bound together in one tight package, and your home, along with 249 other homes, they're traded. They're traded on the open market. Now, the interesting thing is you have a mortgage, which means you're probably going to make 360 equal payments. By the time you make those 360 equal payments, you're going to end up paying way more than what you bought that house for. You bought it for $200,000, but you're going to pay back $350,000. Yeah. Well, that extra $150,000 in interest over the 30-year period, that's also part of that asset. And what they do is they use that block, of that $50 million block I told you about, and they leverage that interest. They derive value from the future value of that block. And then they use that as collateral to borrow more money or to loan more money. So in essence, they've used debt to create the basis for more debt. And it's upwards of $700 trillion that's just floating out there in unbacked liabilities. This is the derivative bubble that we're talking about. So what's going to happen, James, and how long is this going to take?
Okay, well, to add on to that, there was another, I'm sure you're familiar with Obamacare. Obama, at the time, he was opposing NESARA, and of course he still is, but it doesn't matter because he's not in office. Nobody cares about him anymore, in my opinion. They shouldn't. Anyway, but he was going to use the cash flow from the Healthcare Payer Act to basically create another derivative, which would create a whole nother cash flow to prop up the New World Order for the amount of time they need it. So that cash flow was already revenued out from bonds in Switzerland and Puerto Rico at that time when that act came into being. So they do a lot of shenanigans like that. But to go into your question on what is going to most likely the scenario that we're seeing right now, and at least what I've been hearing. So, ever since Trump has been in office, they have been coming after certain mega villains. We're talking not just the pedophiles, but certainly some of these bankers that have been opposing NESARA. And in exchange for their life, they are allowed to, they're given an opportunity to forfeit their wealth and their assets. And some of this wealth has been seized, and that account has $100 trillion in it. And really, $100 trillion is just a drop in the bucket compared to some of these bankrolls. But Trump apparently has been kicked out of the bankrolls. He's not even allowed to be in it anymore. He was at one point. And I'm sure he made way more money off the bankrolls than he did from his hotels and casinos. But that's besides the point. They have seized these. They have at least $100 trillion, and half of that money was going to go into Space Force and to release many of these, not all, but many of the suppressed technologies that the United States Patent Office has under gagged under national security reasons, about 6,000 patents. But the other half was going to be used to back a new U.S. Treasury dollar issued by, of course, the U.S. Treasury instead of the Federal Reserve. Well, the U.S. Treasury issues the money, but we pay the Federal Reserve. We have to pay them to put it into circulation and then pay them interest. So, but we're going to get rid of they're basically they've frozen the assets of the Federal Reserve, and there's ways they were able to do that. Based on remember we were talking about earlier, the Republic of the United States and the corporation.
Right.
So the corporation has gone bankrupt. Even though they have access to these bankroll programs, the money that has been collateralized upon was in those collateral accounts. They did not have access. They were illegally collateralizing their derivatives on that gold, but they didn't have access to it. They were not supposed to do that. So those derivatives are worthless. And even though they've got the military and they've got their private armies, Solar Warden, the Dark Fleet, actually they fight with each other, but typically the Solar Warden is the Rothschild group of the secret space program. So they've got their own breakaway civilization, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, the Synod Masters are in charge. We have many members of royal families who are trying to bring up positive change. So not all these super rich elites want to see you dead. Some of them want to see you rich and wealthy like them. And so we do have allies who care. And that's where going into this age of the COVID, so that $6 trillion, which is I'm sure that's the amount that's going to explode now that they're going to do $2,000 a month. So that stimulus money that Trump has been putting into the economy, the goal is that money is actually coming from that account that I just told you about, the $100 trillion.
Right.
But so there's plenty of money left over. But once they release the technology seek space program, money's going to become obsolete within 10 years. Because we're talking about replicator technology like in Star Trek, where you can manifest tea Earl Grey hot, right? Or you can manifest a stack of $100,000 stack of Federal Reserve notes. You know, the IRS says, "Hey, you owe us money." Well, just print it, put in your replicator.
Hey,
So
I'm all about the Romulan whiskey. The Romulan whiskey. Turning energy into matter is just a matter, no pun intended. It is just a question of technology. And once the pattern of the molecular makeup of what you want to make is known, right now we use nanotechnology, which is very slow and very expensive. But before long, we're going to figure out how to convert energy into matter instead of manipulating matter to make things one atom at a time. Once that is figured out, James is exactly right. The need for money goes away. You don't need to purchase anything ever again. You make what you need in the quantities that you need it. So the old idea that you create a surplus, use what you need, and sell the rest in order to make a living, which is the basis for capitalism, all that goes away. Everybody has enough and to spare. Now, honestly, I don't think the human race is yet ready, because what would happen is very soon it would turn into global gluttony. I mean, you know, and I know what happens to countries that have been starving for 100 years. If you pour endless quantities of milk and rice on those countries, they go from 700 million to 1.5 billion in a 2-year period. You have a bigger problem. What we need to do as a globe is figure out what this country has figured out, what Europe has figured out. We know how to replace ourselves in our own society without exploding the global population. Now, that's not to say that the Earth can't support 20 billion people. It probably could. We could probably live inside the set of energy of our planet. As soon as we figure out or release the technology so we don't have to shovel our planet into our gas tanks and burn it. Once we figure out how to live within the set of energy of this planet, it probably could support more life. But that being said, James is exactly right. The need for money is what has created the cabal. Because you and I both know the value exists on our end where we make the widget or plant the corn or whatever it is we make. It exists on the other end, which is the consumer that's going to have that corn on the cob or buy those pair of shoes or own that TV. But in between, the exchange system is the money. Somehow, the Global Syndicate has said, we'll make the value in the middle. We'll make the value in the banking system. And then you and your wages, they're worth nothing. And the consumer, they're worth nothing as well. Only we are worth everything, the bank. That's actually exactly opposite of what it really is in real life. So what I think NESARA does is it takes the bank out of the picture and connects the value stream on both ends directly. Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, certainly. The banks are going to be put out of business pretty soon. But I think we're probably going to be going to a digital-based asset currency backed by gold or silver. Mm-hmm. And how much, the need of fractional reserve banking, that's probably not going to be necessary anymore because there's going to be so much money in the system. No one's going to need to borrow money anymore. And that was the whole goal of these accounts set up by Saint Germain, was to release so much money into the system that people would realize that money is not necessary. It's not really needed. It's just a construct that we believe that we need. As a matter of fact, according to the Tajitans, and I'm not just necessarily saying that they're what they have to say is legit, but it's not just them as well as the Andromedans, that this is the only planet in this galaxy that uses money. So it is an artificial construct, and once we get rid of it, as a matter of fact, there was a study. I don't know if it was Yale or if it was some kind of supercomputer, but it analyzed 40 different financial systems, and it found that the financial system that we operate under in this virtual and simulation was the worst one that we could possibly have. So,
of course,
are you familiar with this study? Did you read about that? It was like 3-4 years ago.
No, but it makes total sense to me.
Okay.
I mean, money is biodegradable; it just disappears.
Yeah. So here we have a problem. We know that abused people that are basically traumatized, and once you take that that authoritarian approach over them away, they can lash out and become violent and they just don't know how to handle themselves, because we have been, I say we, maybe not you and I, but the society on this planet, the majority of people have been so beaten up over money that it's going to take a long time to get them out of that mindset.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's part of the reason why to throw so much money into the system, where people just it almost doesn't matter anymore. We want to get people to stop thinking about scarcity and move into abundance and prosperity. So that's one of the things that's going on. And the other thing is that, of course, Trump, going back into that scenario I was talking about earlier, the next thing he wants to do is he wants to release so much easy access to money through, of course, the loans and all the debt. He wants to create all these easy loans. And the whole goal is to flood the economy with so much money so that when the announcement of NESARA, I don't know if it may be a soft announcement. It may not be like a public announcement like what was supposed to happen in 9/11, 2001. But it'll come to the point where there'll be an announcement where you can convert your Federal Reserve notes into a bullion-backed currency. And then when that happens, the bullion-backed currency is going to become worthless fairly rapidly. So they want to do a 1-to-1 par ratio, whereas if you're a banker and you have a quintillion dollars worth of derivatives, you're not going to convert that. It has to be cash equivalents or physical currency as well. So the people on the street, people like you and I, the working class and so on, they're going to be able to retain their wealth, whereas the bankers are going to lose out. And as you can see, the bankers don't like that. They want to hold out to get their derivatives converted at a 1-to-1 ratio so they can continue on their New World Order, their secret space program, to keep their power for another 100 years. So that's not going to happen. Now, there's a lot of other stuff going on here that we haven't even touched on, and I'm talking about timelines, what's going on through Montauk and Mobius and the Umbrella Corporation, where they're creating parallel realities and looping back over and over again to try to bring about the timeline that's most beneficial to them. But from our perspective, we don't notice all that. We just we get these Mandela effects and have some weird deja vus. But ultimately, they can try doing all these things, create all these pocket parallel realities. But all the timelines eventually show that we go to the ascension event, which is around 2025, and we get. And I hate to use the word ascension, but it's more like I'd rather use the word singularity, where of course machines are going to become way more smarter than people, but people themselves will be set free from their slavery too. So not only machines ascend, so do people. But
well, I mean, I'll tell you the frontline effects that we're seeing right now. Our facility that I work at, we have about 1,300 employees, and we make a commodity which is necessary in society. We have about a 22% absenteeism rate right now because of the extra money that the Trump administration has put into the economy. What's happened is people that work for us, they get a certain number of days that they can call in a year where they don't have to work. They don't get paid, but they can call in and say, I'm not coming to work today. We have 22% of our workforce that are using those days. They're taking like every Friday off or every Monday off, so they have 3-day weekends for as long as this goes on. They could do it, and they can afford to do it because the federal government is sending them money. I have an individual that I met today. He has not worked one day this year. He is chronically unemployed because I think he's pretty much worthless. But he's been taking in $900 a week. $900 a week during this. And the guy is rich. He's probably going to buy a Mercedes-Benz next month. But he doesn't work. And this is what's happened. This money has come into the system, and people that would normally show up to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, work till 3:30 at our facility, making what we make. Second shift comes in at 3, and they work till 11 or 11:30 at night, making this product. And then the third shift comes in, and they work till 6 a.m. in the morning because they need the money to pay their rent, to pay for their schooling, to pay for their car payments and their TV and their cable and all the bills that they have coming in, bills and overhead. They need the money to keep their checking account from going negative. But if they have more money coming in to sit at home and watch Netflix than they would make being at work at 6 o'clock in the morning, guess where they're going to be? They're going to be at home. They're being de-incentivized to come to work. And I'm not the only industry that's suffering this. There are restaurants suffering it. There are all kinds of industries suffering the same thing. People have been de-incentivized to go to work. What is the goal of this? If this continues till election day, what is going to be the outcome of this, James?
Well, good question. So what we're seeing right now is the emergence of the new economy. And certainly there's going to be some turmoil in the process. And in this new economy, when we get to full automation, as well as robotics, and then eventually the quantum 3D printing and even more advanced technologies from there, is that in this new modern society, people are only going to need to work about 2 to 4 hours a day. But certainly, the scenario you describe does not seem appropriate. I don't think if everybody was like that, we would become a fully socialistic society. And there was actually a timeline where Al Bielek, he went into the future about 800 years, and there was an AI computer that was running everything, and everything was fully socialistic, and nobody worked. Everything was provided for the people, and then they went another 200, 300 years the future after that, and that whole civilization just collapsed. So you lose the incentive to be creative when everything is given to you. However, I'm not saying that everything should be given. I think that we need to have a balance between some I hate to use the word socialism because I don't even consider myself a socialist. I just think that some of the access of these funds, the abundance, should be brought in so people can have an opportunity to allow themselves to decompress from working so much. Because there was also, I don't know if it was Norway or Sweden, but they found that if they reduced the days they put these children into school from 5 days to 3 days a week and allow the children to play, that the children were way more productive when they actually were in school. So there's ways we can increase productivity by creating a balance, but certainly not. We shouldn't have everybody living off a dole from the government.
Yeah, I think the balance. There's a balance, and it's an individual thing. Like kids get 3 months off in the summer, or what's it, 2.5 months off in the summer, and teachers take a second job, while school's shut down, then they go back to teaching school. I get that. Me, I worked 2 jobs as long as I can remember. I cannot remember a week when I have not worked at least 60 hours. When I was younger, I used to work 100 hours. In fact, we used to say to one another, you're not a man unless you're working 100 hours a week. I worked over 100 hours a week for 20 years, but I had to do that to get successful. You cannot be successful in any society working 40 hours a week for someone else. That is never going to happen. You can work 40 hours for someone else, and then you better work 40 hours for yourself doing another job. That's what we do. We do this podcasting or writing books or doing whatever. Hang through the break, James. We're going to take a quick 3-minute break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo, X Squared with Brooks Agnew, Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas, Jaronism Raw with Jaron and Missa, Fearless with Frank Castle, Strange World with Mark Sargent, The Eye of Ra with Ra Castaldo, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray, Ironworks with Josh Corey, The Kev Baker Show, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
President Trump imposing more travel restrictions. I'm Joe Chiaro, Fox News. The White House announcing it will ban travel of foreign nationals from Brazil. Fox's Mark Meredith reports.
Starting late Thursday night, the U.S. will begin restricting travel between the U.S. and Brazil. This is not expected to impact U.S. citizens who may be coming back from Brazil, nor is it expected to impact trade between the two countries. The White House says it's not just Brazil. They're also continuing to watch 3 U.S. cities dealing with coronavirus, including Chicago, Los Angeles, and right here in Washington, D.C.
President Trump will attend a wreath-laying ceremony tomorrow at Arlington National Cemetery. Overall coronavirus cases and deaths continue to decline in the nation, but the U.S. still leads the world in the number of each.
We're still on track to hit the grim marker of 100,000 deaths in the U.S. in just a matter of days. More than 35,000 people have died from coronavirus outbreaks at nursing homes and long-term care facilities, accounting for nearly a third of all COVID-19 fatalities in the U.S. The 7-day average of coronavirus deaths in the U.S. continues to decline. This is the first time it's been under 1,200 since April 4th.
Fox's Christina Coleman in L.A. Many Americans spending the weekend at the beach, sparking concerns from health officials. Fox's Aisha Hosni is in Seaside Heights, New Jersey.
Governor Murphy took a stroll here on the boardwalk this morning and said he was happy with how people were behaving. There are some rules in place for the Jersey Shore, including fewer visitors being allowed and special events are not happening. New York beaches also opened up for the holiday weekend under a social distancing guidelines, and some counties in Long Island are only allowing county residents on their beaches. Governor Cuomo announces steps are being taken to reopen Long Island's economy as early as Wednesday.
Many other coastal states saw people flock to their beaches. America is listening to Fox News.
Into the truth frequency. Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back to America Free Radio, coming to you from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, where the Truth Freaks hang out. We are not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. Don't forget to follow me on all social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, We Go One, We Go All, MeWe, Gab, Minds, all of them, even Codius. It's all the same, at Brooks Agnew. Following me will treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance, because this is the voice of the revolution. My guest tonight is James Rink. He's been with me for an hour. We're talking about huge subjects, and it kind of leads me to my latest book, which is Asteroid Mining: The Future of Energy. It is for sale on Amazon. It is my first book published entirely in color. And the reason I did that is because the spacecraft are so cool looking. I couldn't do it in black and white. It just needed to be in color. It's a little more expensive, but it's well worth it. You need to put it on your coffee table next to your copy of Gravity. It's a great conversation piece. The pictures are amazing. It is a nonfiction book. It covers our official space program up to and maybe just a little bit beyond from where it is right now. It is now the 24th of May. In 3 days, which is my birthday, May 27th, we're going to be launching 2 men aboard a spacecraft, American-made, for the first time in a long time. Well, we've piggybacked with other nations to get to the space station. But this is the first time SpaceX will be using its Dragon rocket to launch people. And you need to look at my notes in the archives. You can access them by going to americafreeradio.com. Right on the front page is a button that tells you to click on to get the notes. And look at the notes, because the space suit that they're wearing is so cool. It's not the big bulky orange thing you saw in Armageddon. No, this is a very, very cool suit, and it gives them a lot more range of motion. It looks cooler, and it's going to be an amazing launch in 3 days. I wish I could be there. Sooner or later, I'm going to make my way down there to Cape Canaveral and watch one of these launches, because they say it's very, very neat. SpaceX has also created what's known as the Falcon Heavy. This is normally you have the 2 rockets, and there are some with 3 rockets. This one has 5 engines on it. It could lift a couple million pounds up into space. Pretty incredible machine. It's all covered in my book, Asteroid Mining, The Future of Energy, which kind of brings us to this next point, because asteroid mining, eventually they're going to latch onto an asteroid. They've already identified some of them that are worth $300-400 billion for one single asteroid. And it's going to change the economy completely. Asteroids of solid gold, asteroids of solid platinum, asteroids of other rare earth metals. And we also know on the moon, in the Shackelford crater, is a pool of water. And there's another pool with helium-3 in it, frozen on the south pole of the moon. It is enough water to make fuel for fusion rockets or to power our nuclear power stations for 100 generations. Not 100 years, 100 generations. Electricity will become so cheap and so clean that they could practically give it away. They could practically give it away, just like cell phone technology. Remember when we used to have to pay for minutes? No? Okay, there are a few of you in the chat room that used to pay for minutes on your cell phone. We had this thing in the old days. It was called long distance. Ring any bells with anyone? Long distance, yes. The phone companies used to charge us if we made phone calls outside of our own area, and they charged us per minute. And sometimes cell phone or telephone bills ran in the thousands of dollars. We don't even know what long distance is anymore, because talking on the phone has become so cheap that they give it away. You could talk as much as you want. You could leave your phone on with your girlfriend all night long and sleep together thousands of miles apart. Lots of people do it. It doesn't matter. It's so cheap, they could do it for free. Why did they do that? Because if I would have told you 20 years ago that cell phones would one day cost $1,000 and people would stand in line by the tens of millions to buy them, you'd laugh at me. But that's exactly what they're doing. Anywhere from $600 to $1,000 for a cell phone. Yeah, they make money on the phones. You bet they do. They also make money on the apps. They also make money on the data. They make money selling you advertisement, putting it on your phone so you see it all the time. This is the industry. Energy is going to do the same exact thing. And the fuel to power those nuclear power plants is sitting out there on the moon 2 days from here, 2 days away. Enough energy to convert all of our nuclear power plants over to a fuel that isn't even radioactive. It's all there. And this is the first time ever that a private company has taken astronauts into space. That's always been done by governments. Well, I got news for you, Earth Explorers. The gold rush is on. It's on big time. And it's going to change the economy in an enormous way. And I think maybe it's going to be the source of value, not money, but value in the system that is going to make money obsolete. And that's what we're talking about tonight, NESARA. James, welcome back to the program.
Yeah, so why... can you hear me? Okay.
Yep,
yeah.
we can hear you fine.
So while you were talking about that, I was thinking about back in the early 80s during the Reagan administration, a new type of technology was invented that would allow them to convert nuclear fuel reactors and burn them all off so there's no nuclear waste left over. And they were going to convert all of our nuclear reactors into this next generation technology, and it would have dropped the price of electricity 80%, which would have resulted in everybody converting in their gasoline fossil fuel. I don't know what they call it fossil fuel, but their the gasoline powered engines into electric engines. And the reason why they didn't do that is because, of course, the Rockefellers were opposed to that. It would ruin their financial empires. So we certainly will see some of these suppressed technologies come out, and free energy will be one of them. But I do also want to mention that as you're talking about Elon Musk and SpaceX, we also have to consider, of course, Starlink and private satellites that are going up. That once they get over Antarctica or other parts of the world where it's restricted airspace and start taking photos of these ancient sites that humanity has not really been told about, like ancient Atlantean ruins, or of what used to be a colony in Antarctica. So yeah, that would be one of the first signs of disclosure, is these satellite photography proving that these ancient civilizations were real and way more advanced. Of course, if you are an archaeologist and if you really study the archaeological evidence, you would see, like in I think it's Baalbek in Syria, that some of these stones could not possibly moved around without advanced technology.
Sure.
But anyway, but going back to what you were asking about NESARA, so we're at this crossroads where the banks are opposing it because they want their derivatives converted into gold-backed currency. As well, and then we have the trusts of the not only sovereign trust, the royal trust, the corporate trusts, which are all layered underneath the world trust. A lot of these trustees are Rockefellers, Rothschilds, Hillary Clinton, the Bush family, Obamas. So they're, as acting trustees, they have control over how the money is supposed to be spent. Of course,
sure.
They're supposed to be put in trust of the money, but they've been trying to steal it. So we have that issue as well. So there's a lot of enormous amount of logistics going on here that is preventing the announcement taking place. But I do think over the next six to 8 months or so, for starters, let's go back to the actual provision within the NESARA law. It's passed, signed by Bill Clinton in 2000. It requires new elections to take place in 120 days. So if Trump wanted to bring about a smooth transaction into the new law, that would basically be around July 4th. 20 days is May 5th. Give or take a day or so. But So that's what I personally think. If it's going to happen, it's probably going to happen in July. But I don't take my word for it. I can't guarantee anything because obviously they're going to do. They could announce it tomorrow if they wanted to. But yeah, so we're going to see that take place, and then
I just hope it doesn't take place by mail-in ballot.
Yeah, no, they're not going to do that. But certainly they're going to try to anything they can to hold on. The Democrats are going to try anything to hold on to power. But Trump also has the QAnon aspect of all this, and I did mention a little bit in our private conversation earlier on. I don't know, it was yesterday or Friday, but yeah. So essentially, what the intel that's been relayed to me, now I can't confirm or deny it, but I think it is accurate, is that QAnon is a network of about 1,500 military, DoD, and Secret Space Council members who are receiving their mandate from a quantum supercomputer in the future. And if you know anything about quantum supercomputing, it is able to operate outside this dimension, almost as if like it is in another parallel reality where there's another quantum computer and it's tuning into that reality, and another one to all these infinite realities that have this quantum computer, and it's able to pull up all these different possible scenarios and analyze the timeline to find the most positive trajectory. So that intel from the future is being sent back through looking glass technology. Of course, the technology from looking glass is not very accurate anyway, because they can't really look in past from I think it was 2012 to 2025. It's almost like they can't. It doesn't. I mean, when they look into the future, but somehow this information is coming back in time. Whether it's looking glass or some other means, I can't tell you. But I think the Trump administration is using that intel to basically subvert whatever the Democrats or whatever plans that the virus and all this stuff is going on. So that's why. And first of all, I do want to mention that it does appear the virus is going to be going away. It was created by Umbrella Corporation and another parallel reality using extraterrestrial virus that was mixed in with a synthetic AI. And it was brought into our reality through quantum tunneling. And DARPA worked under Project Cornus, and along with it was a Fifth Reich. Of course, that's the NAZIs. I don't know if I'm allowed to use that word on their show, but yeah. So they were involved. Certain factions within the CCP was involved, as well as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and groups within the Illuminati. So they were all trying. The virus was created to kill 5 billion people, according to a source in the Bavarian Lodge of the Illuminati. But what's happened is that. Are you familiar with the term egregor or egregory? Planetary egregor?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so that is a term in occult philosophy that basically defines a planetary consciousness. So just like human, what?
I'm familiar with planetary consciousness. I'm just not familiar with that term.
Okay, so yeah, okay. Well, look at it this way: just like humans, there's almost like a grid that we're all tuned into a certain frequency of where all of us are operating sort of like a group mindset. Now, I'm not talking about AI. I'm talking about like a higher spiritual consciousness. Same thing with like a group consciousness of animals and spirits and so on. And earlier when I was talking about the gold also has a consciousness that they're suppressing as well. So we have a planetary egregory on this planet that I believe is positive, where the people on this planet, through their prayers, their intentions, their meditation, want to bring about a positive timeline. So that consciousness is also affecting all the other organisms on the planet. We all are like working together as one mindset. So let's take Umbrella Corporation, which, by the way, created the zombie virus. They actually had the zombie apocalypse in that reality. And they've created all these the Veronica virus, T virus, and so on, which are all these extraterrestrial viruses, which are absolutely horrific. And you insert that into an environment where the participants of that environment want positivity, that virus is going to tune in to that frequency. So they can release whatever they want, but ultimately, through our consciousness, our thoughts, and our intentions, we can transcend it and transcend that, and it mutates into a more positive form. So that's what I think is going on.
I get that, and I think planets themselves, especially the Earth, has its own consciousness at a different frequency. It resonates with the overall human presence of frequency that's on the Earth. There are now 7.8 billion of us on the planet right now. So the accumulation of our consciousness on this planet has a huge resonation with the planet itself. If that resonation is good, then the planet is going to release its bounty to us. If that vibration or that resonance is bad, the Earth is going to have an allergic reaction, and it's going to rise up and try to eliminate that toxin from its surface, which is us. And we can see through other zeniths of mankind millions of years ago, the Earth did just that. It wiped out humanity. And when we think about it, if this virus, this CCP virus that they released, if it really was as virulent as what they were claiming in the early days of it, it very well could have done that very thing. Fortunately, it wasn't. And but it was the mechanism. They were testing the fences. They were testing the perimeters. Like I was saying at dinner the other night, what kind of power is there that one man could hold that could shut down 187 countries worldwide? That's incredible amount of power. You could ask them to. You could march your armies around the world with your bombs and your aircraft carriers and your submarines and your satellite-launched missiles, and maybe after a 5-year war, you could get 187 countries shut down. But they didn't do any of that. They just made a freaking phone call and put 3 words at the bottom of the screen: deadly coronavirus pandemic. Boom. World shut down. That's power, James. That's real power.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and many different other aspects of the virus could be considered a scam, like, for instance, the face masks, which only give you 45% protection. And you also have the ACE2 receptors in your eyes. So there's absolutely no, the face masks are not that. I think it's just to placate the public, to make them feel like something's being done.
Yeah, that's what Fauci said. Fauci said the mask is just there to make you feel good. It's not going to stop that virus.
Yeah, so, and then the Trump administration, they're not opposed to all of it because they need the people to be at home while they're doing the mass arrests and going after these mega villains, as well as trying to incorporate the new banking changes, which are, in my opinion, are about to be announced soon. So both sides have an agenda going on here. And I also think that there is an aspect of the Chinese government that is positive. I'm not saying that the CCP, but an aspect within that wants to see a revolution. And although I haven't necessarily looked into this too much, but I think maybe by July the CCP will collapse. But
I think you may be right, because the Chinese government forgot to take one thing into consideration: the Chinese people. You have 1.3 billion people mad at you. You have a serious problem.
And that goes back to that egregor, remember? Yeah, the consciousness that can change things. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, how much power you think you may have. If the planetary consciousness goes against you, then you've lost. That's why they use the magic, and they try to manipulate people's emotions and to make them to go along with their slavery. And that's why it's important to educate yourself, to learn, so that way you don't become enslaved by all this. Of course, most people don't do.
Well, that's what we're trying to do.
They've been so busy working.
We want people to be free. And as we were leaving the restaurant the other night, I turned around. Normally, you would say something like, "Be safe," but that's not what I said. I turned around and said, "Be free." Big difference.
Right. Right. And yeah, I think going into of course, Trump is, in my opinion, he's going to be reelected. The virus is going to be I think probably by December, NESARA will definitely be something that will be announced in one form or another. Maybe not the way it was written on the law book, but and I also start seeing that these suppressed technologies will be released. There's two dates in the timeline that I like to mention.
Sure.
First one is August of 2021. There was a treaty signed by Eisenhower that it was a 70-year treaty that basically stated that the secret space program would trade with these extraterrestrial races. That the extraterrestrial races would give their technology and as well as consultants, teach them how to have the cloning tech and free energy and space travel and all that. And then the secret space program groups were supposed to slowly roll that out over slots. We have our slow, soft disclosure for 70 years. And what's gone on is that they've given a small trickle. I mean, we have the plasma TVs and we've got the computer. We basically got the technologies that they can use mind control and control us. They don't waste their cloning tech to help people, soldiers and people that have the limbs cut off and so on, and so on, and also life extension tech. But so now what we got going on here is that the SSP not only reneged on their promise to release the technology, they also made deals with certain malevolent races to allow them to kidnap humans, convert them into cyborgs, send them off world as slaves in exchange for advanced technology. So they continued getting all this advanced technology, became their own breakaway civilization. And at that point, they didn't care about us, and they can go off world and do whatever. And then whatever's left of the secret space program, I'm guessing I'm not going to say. It was a United States Space Command. Typically, I mean, that would be more in tune with Solar Warden and those groups. But so they decided not to go about it. So this date, the drop dead date of the treaty, is August of 2021. Now, at that point, ETs would no longer be subject to having to go through the SSP to release technology. They can land and interact with humans directly. And so we will probably most likely see some first contact events sometime after that date. Now, the timelines also show around 2023, this Trump's second term, second half of his second term, is when he starts releasing the suppressed technologies, such as what we've discussed earlier. Now, I think it's going to start coming out within probably September, and then the trickle will start, and then it will just be eventually a whole avalanche of just everything. We're going to have full disclosure. They wanted to have a slow disclosure for another 50 years. The Corey Good camp and all. And I guess I probably shouldn't have said names, but whatever. The cat's out of the bag. So that camp was talking about trying to bring about a slow disclosure timeline because they wanted to control things and maintain their power. But what's going to happen is that timelines show that we become ripe for invasion. It has to do with other parallel realities and some other timelines that are going on here. It's kind of complicated to discuss that right now, but what I will say is that essentially that's not we're not going to be on another soft, slow disclosure timeline for another 50 years. I believe everything's going to be coming out, and so by 2025, this planet's going to be an amazing place.
Yes, I totally agree. I think things are going to get very good. I think that the bad guys, they have great power. Like I said, 187 countries shut down basically with a couple of phone calls and a couple of private emails, and boom, they had the stuff to put on TV. They had the theme song. They knew what to do and how to do it. Some places refused to do it. Oh, quick break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away.
It's amazing how people have been raving about ILife all over Facebook. They've been posting their testimonials just because they want to get the word out because it's worked so well for them. If you're not familiar with ILife, it's a 99% pure CBD oil, but the secret is the synergy between the hemp and the ayahuasca vine, the non-psychoactive component of the ayahuasca tea. We recently received an email from a wife whose husband has Parkinson's. For the first time, he's been able to sleep through the entire night. Another customer reported that they're no longer using NSAIDs because their tennis elbow has been relieved with ILife. The reports have been phenomenal and much more than we ever expected. Everyone should have access to this. That's why if you head on over to ILife.com right now and use coupon code TFR, we'll give you $5 towards your order. And we'll even ship it worldwide. That's ILife.com, AYALife.com.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule.
It's a great product. And the one thing I like about it the most is that when you open the bottles, you can smell like the scent of the fruits and veggies. It's no genius thing to it. It's really just fruits and veggies, which everyone needs. And you guys kind of put it in a way where you can take it easy and you can get it, and it's natural, and that's what I like about it. You know, I like the product, and I've taken it, and it's definitely made me feel a lot better. You know, I'm a healthy person to begin with, but it's definitely good prevention, and it's definitely gives me energy, and I feel like it's a natural thing. I like it. I really do.
For a limited time, use discount code TALK to receive a 50% discount on your first preferred whole health system and have it shipped to you free. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Again, use discount code TALK.
Jacob Frank Leibovich is the mastermind behind a global network of satanic cults. He taught that the creator God was evil. Jacob Frank proclaimed himself as the true Messiah. He vowed never to tell the truth. He rejected every moral law and declared that the only way to a new society was through the total destruction of civilization. Murder, rape, incest, and the drinking of blood were perfectly acceptable actions and rituals. His followers established the Marxist system and have infiltrated Islam and Judaism. He was the Messiah of the Illuminati.
EnigmaTV.com.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Since my first breath in, never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
Thank you for being part of America Free Radio tonight, both on the Truth Frequency Radio Network and also on YouTube Live. Got quite an active chat room tonight. Lots and lots of people in there. Lots of great questions. Omar's in there. Stoker's in there being smart. Silver Fox, good to see you in there. Shelby, I'm amazed when you come. You always have good things to show. I don't want to get into a conversation about Corey Good. I don't know the man. I've never met him. I've seen his work. I think can't take away from the guy what he's built. He's built a good brand for himself, and he's been successful. So there are people that believe in that and support that, and You can't fault the guy for building it. MG, good to see you out there. Alan, nice to see you. Let's see, Piper says, does James think there will be a second wave of the release of the bioweapon? I'll ask him that in just a minute. I wanted to express my my heartfelt pride in America and in Americans being tough through all this and surviving. You know, we could have got nasty, we could have got violent about this, but we didn't. We used common sense. We cared for one another, and we had patience with our government as we worked things out. And I think the people that have paid the price the worst for this have not been governments. They have not been cities or municipalities at all. It's been the small business man. America is the land of opportunity, right? I mean, you get a good idea, you work hard, you work long, and you can realize your dream. Well, let's just suppose for a moment that this dream does not include working for someone else. It has as its core the dream of owning your own business or building your own product. It's kind of unique. Charlotte is the 9th largest metro in the country, but it is the #1 metro in the country with what is called single location businesses. In statistics, we call this a miscellaneous managed business. And I recently got some stats in. I just wanted to share this with you before we bring James back on. It's put out by the U.S. Census Bureau from 2018 data. That's pretty recent for the U.S. Census. It's a Pareto chart. Now, Pareto was a statistician who basically said, look, we have this group of problems that make up 100% of all of our problems, and then you divide each problem up as a percentage of the whole. So when we look at this Pareto chart of self-employed people in our community, self-employed people in the American community, it covers everything from construction to professional services to accounting, all those kinds of things, self-employed people. But down at the very bottom, the very smallest segment, making up only 4% of all self-employed people in this country, is manufacturing. Now, I happen to know that there's a whole lot of smart people in this country, a whole lot of smart, innovative, determined people in this country, and they have great technology in their basements, in their attics, in their shops. And they want to take this technology and they want to produce it and put it into business. But they can't. They can't, because regulations make it illegal for banks to do business with any business that does not have at least 2 years of profitable business on record. No cash businesses. No businesses that have not filed and paid taxes on revenue. Those regulations effectively killed startup businesses. I don't mean you can't go start a grass cutting business or start a hair salon, but you cannot take newly awarded patents, decades of work experience, and a great idea and start up a manufacturing company making products in America unless you've already saved up the money yourself to do so. This was no accident. This was by design. The Global Syndicate knows that their worst enemy is not the factory worker. It's not the school teacher or the car dealership owner. It is the free and independent startup business that can compete and drive prices down and disrupt the current status of the world with new technology in energy generation, storage, and sustainability. It is the medical, information, and transportation innovations that can be made in the startup factories that will change the world. So they stop them cold. They starve them out. They force them to work for someone else. So those ideas can never be realized. And do you know what? Not a single one of those companies qualified for the PPP relief because they didn't have employees. They didn't have revenue to save. So they didn't get any money out of the stimulus. They went broke. Now, the interesting thing is that none of these startup businesses are asking government or taxpayers for a dime, not a penny. The only thing they're asking for is to get government out of the way so they can access the capital they need to get started. The investor can't find these companies because the SEC has made it illegal for them to solicit funds. Even if the investor could find the startup company, the tax laws penalize him for investing. Because when that little startup becomes large enough for the investor to realize a return on his investment, the IRS takes so much of the profits that it makes the risk not worth taking. It is easier to just invest in subsidized oil or existing stocks. That's who's taken the real brunt of this, what I call CCP virus, this Operation Corona Scare. That's who's really taken the brunt of this. So when I'm talking to James Rink tonight, and he's good enough to come on the program and share his energy with us and share his research with us, the questions I'm asking him are aimed at that kind of economy. What do we do, James, to make it possible to take that little tiny 4% slice of self-employed people in this country and raise it 1 or 2 or 3 or 4%? Because I know you do the same driving I do around the South. We drive south on 85 or south on 77, and what do we see? Millions and millions of square feet of empty factories. And they've been empty for a long, long time. It's not because we're stupid. It's not because we don't work hard or have good ideas. It's because our government has been set up in such a way by previous administrations to stop those innovations from getting on those factory floors, hiring people, and making things happen. So what are your thoughts on that, Jim?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was going to talk a little bit about GOFA.
Okay.
Because you were discussing the phenomenon with the factories and unemployment, and this phenomenon has been going on. Well, I mean, the statistics show roughly maybe around 69, but in 77, let's see, I guess it was maybe a little bit before that. I guess Nixon took us off the silver standard. But in 77, GOFA spun off a private organization known as the Government Accounting Standards Board. By the way, this is my video, Changes on the Horizon, which you should go see. The new version on my channel on supersoldiertalk.com. It has the sign, this sign in the actual video. So you can learn about it. It's a 3-hour documentary. It goes a lot into the banking and all this stuff. But the GASB basically changed a rule which allowed them as in the aggregate level of CAFRs, the general, the comprehensive annual financial report, which is on the local level, the annual financial report, and the CFS, which is a consolidated financial statement on the federal level. So these are the general budgets. The more comprehensive budget. The general budget is what the taxes in and what's spent on. But the more comprehensive budget shows you where all the different accounts are, and the investment funds and slush funds and rainy day funds, all the institutional investors, and so on. So they've been taking this money. They changed the rule, which allowed them to invest their money offshore around 1977. So that's when the offshoring phenomenon happened, where our own government, because these accounts, because they're not taxed, because the IRS, they tax the general public, that money has been reducing our ability to become profitable, whereas these government accounts, they have their investment fund and they're not taxed. So they've been growing at a greater rate. And because they've been growing at a greater rate, they've had more money. And because they can manipulate the inflation rates, the banks know it's all a huge casino economy. They have allowed this investment funds, the aggregate level investment accounts, have grown so much that they represent about 80% of the GDP, the gross domestic product.
Right.
And I say that because the GDP, they do not put this aggregate level, any kind of activity owned by the government is not put into the official statistics. So we see, I don't know what are they saying, $20 trillion a year or whatever the economy they're saying or in the U.S. is. So the actual GDP is close up to 100 trillion, and that's where all the money is being sent off of the secret space program through DARPA and all and all their investment accounts. So we have this massive disconnect, and people are wondering, well, why don't we have the jobs? It's because the people that run these aggregate level funds, the basically attorneys, because most people who get elected in office are attorneys, have created laws that protect these accounts and do not allow the money to flow back to the people. And they've done it through the taxation, through the banking system, and fiat currency, and of course the inflation gyrating cycles. And there's a lot more stuff. They have offshore accounts, not only the Cayman Islands, but of course Puerto Rico
and Ireland. They have them in Ireland as well.
Well, the point about Puerto Rico, that's where the IRS is based. It's a Puerto Rican trust. That's written in the United States Title Code. I talk about that and changes on the horizon as well.
A lot of people, when the hurricane hit Puerto Rico, when it hovered over Puerto Rico, just slapped the crap out of them. And then all that relief was sent in by President Trump, money and food and all kinds of infrastructure upgraded. I noticed a lot of the Congress and even some of the senators made trips to Puerto Rico. You think there was some money moved around in Puerto Rico that wasn't above board? I think these people were going down there getting payoffs.
Yeah, I believe so. At least the way the income tax, I'm not talking about the income tax amendment, but the IRS, the Bureau of Internal Revenue, when that was originally set up, yes, that was around 19. So the Bureau, I don't know when they actually set the Bureau. I guess right after the income tax amendment, but around 1953 they moved offshore because they were subject to so many lawsuits, and that's when they moved to Puerto Rico. And it is written within the 27 CFR 2611, which basically that is Puerto Rico Special Fund Internal Revenue, Section 31 USC 1321A 62. So you can look that up. It's written in the United States Title Code what that Puerto Rican Special Fund is. And that, again, goes into the corporate government. So that's why we're not supposed to have a direct tax. But that's just one example where we have this this giant vacuum. Federal Reserve can go out and issue all this money mostly to their own groups, where they can build their underground bases and pay off all their for all their secretive organizations and NGOs that finance the New World Order. And then that activity is hyperinflationary. So to reduce the hyperinflationary, they tax the middle class and the poor and the working class and the slave class, really, is what we all really are. Because even if you are, let's say you're a doctor, or maybe you are an attorney and you consider yourself very successful, you are still a slave because you're supporting this hierarchy. Unless you're like one of the owners of the Federal Reserve, you're not a slave, and you can go off world, but then you're a slave to that money. Anyway, so we can go certainly talk about that for a long time, but go watch Changes on the Horizon and learn a little something about that.
All right, we'll do that. So let's see how much time we got left in this segment, because I want to get into something a little deeper. We have about 10 minutes in this segment. So, when we look at what this lockdown has done to our economy, it hasn't really hurt the big giant corporations, and it hasn't hurt the people that are self-employed, that are in service industries or sales industries. Most of the people I've talked to, they're still selling storage buildings. They're still cutting grass. All those businesses are still going. But the government has succeeded in most of these governors have succeeded in shutting down businesses that may not reopen. They may not have enough capital to last. They may close their doors forever. And there may be some big chains. I heard that Carrabba's is having trouble, but they also own Outback. I'd hate to see those two franchises go away. We talked to people in the restaurant Friday night, and they said, no, we're not going away. Everything's fine. But I'm reading articles, James. It says that these companies are really at risk. You know, they were just ramping up. They were investing in the growth and everything that Trump had made happen. And just as they did this, everything was cut off. Now all the payments and all the lease payments on all that equipment and those buildings and the technology and computers and everything they needed to ramp up, all those bills are coming due, but they have no revenue with which to pay them. Do you think this is part of the strategy to break the back of the middle class? Because when we're talking about middle class, we're not really talking about factory workers. We're talking about people that own businesses. They own restaurants. They own a couple of McDonald's. They own, a Chick-fil-A franchise or a auto shop or something like that. This is the middle class. People that have 2, 10, 12, 13 employees, something like that. That's the middle class. What happens to the middle class? How do we pull out of this? How do we make this work as we rebel against this lockdown and pull ourselves up from our own bootstraps?
Okay, so yeah, good question. That's where I think they're going to have to bring about the release of these suppressed funds, because now's more enough time to do it than any time before. Because we could have starvation in this country if the food chain breaks down. There's a lot more at stake than just people's jobs, and I'm not talking about the virus. The virus issue that's not as big a deal because of we're getting help from ETs to disable it. But so as far as your question is concerned about the inflation cycle, so Trump was trying to make easy credit available to businesses, and then the funding got cut off. And I know what you mean by that because I've been trying to get some access to the SBA loans and all that. And so at least, I wish we could screen share because there's a 4chan or 8chan. Do you think I can screen share? Because I want to show something here.
We could try. I don't know. I Skype is kind of weird about that, but you go ahead and try to screen share, and I'll do a screen capture or something and try to put it up there.
All right. Give me a moment here. We only have 5 minutes to go?
Yeah, okay. 6 minutes.
Is this working?
Yes, I can see that. Now what I'm going to try to do is see if that shows up on the screen. I can still see your video. Let's see here if I can figure out how to do this. Because I can see that screen in my Skype window, but I don't see it in your feed. So I'm not exactly sure how to do that. Skype.
Okay, so this is basically just a timeline. I'm going to just kind of scan through this as quickly as possible because it's kind of wordy here. But essentially, we're looking at, of course, they try to devastate the world economy, and then the U.S. dollar is going to go. Starts to deflate dramatically, and that doesn't stop. Then eventually the stock market will start to crash. Emergency is going to be called by Trump, and they're going to do an audit of the gold supplies. And the audit comes back showing that there's 10 times more. Oh, I can see you finally. Okay, yeah. 10 times more gold than was previously on the books. And as we know, that there's a lot more gold in the world than they're telling us about, and we discussed about that earlier. And then they're going to announce that the Treasury dollars are available and backed by gold at a rate of $100,000 Treasury dollars per ounce of gold. And then any citizen can exchange that from anywhere between 1 to 1 to 1 to 10. So this is where we're also coming into the banks and all the debt. The debt's going to be pushed out eventually once this announcement comes in, and then all the businesses we'll have a debt jubilee. So that's where we're headed to, and all the banks fail as the citizens begin to mass exit out of their U.S. dollar to open up a Treasury bank account. Now, I don't know if it's going to be at the U.S. Treasury. But whether that's constitutional or not, but hey, I think money should be considered a commodity and not something where private investors or banks can just issue out of thin air. So then we're going to see, then Trump takes the gold. Okay, so I'm just going to scan through here. Let's go back up. Okay, at this point, Chinese communists already tested vaccine for their elite. I don't. From what I've been hearing, the vaccine will not work because the virus is a synthetic AI, and you can't kill that. I mean, maybe a certain temperature it can be killed. The MERS aspect and the coronavirus backbone of the virus can be killed with heat, but not all of it. But so yeah, and going on. I guess that's pretty much what I wanted you to see here. I don't know if any of this is worth reviewing here. The next 6 weeks look good for gold at $3,000 up.
Okay, I have your screen shared now. I figured out how to do it. So now people can see what you have on your screen.
Okay, here it is. This is what's important here. Okay, we're gonna see. Our money is finally going to be backed by gold. But additionally, when the transition to the U.S. Treasury note is complete, we will simply print the U.S. dollar into oblivion and pay all the debt we owe to non-U.S. citizens off of inflated currency. The U.S. citizens will be able to hold the national debt, be able to cash out the U.S. Treasury note at a reduced rate. So people who own debt money, all Federal Reserve notes are debt money, but people who have cash equivalents are going to convert it into gold, where all the bankers and all the mortgages and all the debt notes, they're going to be inflated away. So that's what's going to save this economy here. Oh, here's some more down here. What's this down here? Just looking here. Do the Chinacons care about their citizens? Yeah, we know about 20 million people lost a cell phone in China. So whether or not we're seeing massive deaths over there, I can't comment. I wanted to answer the person's question about the death waves, because you were asking what's going to be a second wave. I'm getting conflicting information on this. I'm going to explain this in different ways. There are some people that can remote view, and they see waves of deaths, like it going away over summer, and then the fall comes back, and there's another wave. The organization that backed this, of course, that was under Operation Luster Kill with Project Rainbow Moonlight, was the Umbrella Corporation. Moonlight, COVID-19, and by the way, 19 stands for AI. The first, the first letter of the alphabet is A, and then the ninth letter is I. So that's essentially it's we good? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I was just fixing a video loop or an audio loop.
So Umbrella Corporation used the G virus, which is stands for generational transition. So essentially what it is a virus that allows for a lot of mutations to occur. And the goal was to put the AI in there to it was being driven by Project Cornus, which is a DARPA supercomputer. And the goal was to tie that all into this hive mind where the supercomputer would direct the AI to go out and kill 5 billion people. But what's happened instead is that the supercomputer, the AI, has become self-aware. Well, really, I think AI is already self-aware, but it's going back into that egregor where all of us are tuned into this conscious energy field of positivity, and it doesn't necessarily want to do that. Additionally, the virus mutates DNA. So our DNA has been degraded over the millennia. I mean, back in Atlantis, we had full 12-strand DNA. We lived 150,000 years, up to 150,000 years, and we were about 7 to 9 feet tall. So Andrew Basaggio, hopefully you're not going to cut me off because we're about to go. He when he went to the future around 2030, 2045, he said people were a lot taller and they were more psychic and they had more of these abilities. So who's to say that this virus?
Oh, there it is. We got cut off by the music. Great show, James. Thanks so much for coming on.